made folks nervous. Rumors were already flying that he'd taken some kind of serious damage during his military years, so he was likely to lose his mind and kill them all at any moment. She cringed inwardly every time she heard that particular story, even as she told herself his possible mental issues had nothing to do with her. Her orders were to keep an eye on Frank Carter and the rest of Wheels of Pain, not to get turned around every time some sexy military man walked by. But he was hard to ignore while she waited for her visitation. Deliciously tall, he'd let his black hair grow way too long. He'd brushed it out of his eyes and under his hat at least twice each time she'd seen him. He wasn't used to that hat, she realized pretty quick, but it seemed to be growing on him. He visibly relaxed a little every time he put it on again. Broad shoulders, long legs, and a hell of a lot of muscle made her wonder exactly what it was that brought him home from the Middle East. Nothing she could see, at least not from the window. It was tempting to get close enough to find out. Well, tempting for her. Most other people seemed to give the big man an insultingly wide berth whenever he walked by. Just her luck, she had serious problems staying away from trouble, and this new bad cop was definitely trouble. She paused on the steps leading to where she'd parked her bike. In the distance, kids climbed on a playset. Shrieks of laughter carried a long way, as did the sound of parents giving warnings and probably being ignored. That was where the new guy parked himself every day, right under the big oak tree that topped the slope of grass. With all the noise, he would probably never even hear her coming. She could get a good look, satisfy her curiosity, and get the hell out. No big deal. If anyone on Frank's payroll noticed her lingering, she could just tell Frank she was checking to see if the new guy might be someone she could work up. Yeah, Frank would like that. Maybe. He hated when people thought of things before he did, though it didn't happen often. Paranoid and pathological weren't adjectives she used lightly, but they sure fit Frank to a T. Still, she took the first step toward the park. This is a stupid move, Killian. The last thing she needed was to complicate her tenuous situation. So stupid. Because her feet began a steady stride on the sidewalk leading to the rolling green hillside surrounding the municipal center, and she wasn't doing a damn thing to stop herself. She just wanted a better look. How much could a look hurt? Which was what she'd always asked herself as a kid, right before she hopped on someone else's bike for a joyride. That memory almost stopped her, but she gave a mental shrug and kept going. That was the danger to coming home. Who you really were had a sneaky way of disappearing into who you used to be. Her boot heels sank into the rich grass, each step kicking up the fresh scent of sun-warmed, freshly watered earth. But earth wasn't what had her attention. No. That was firmly trained on the length of man stretched out where the ground had just started to slope. Arms folded behind his head, wide-brimmed green felt hat over his face, those long legs crossed at the ankle, and his chest rising and falling evenly. He was the picture of relaxation. She slowed, allowing her gaze to trace the thick ropes of muscle where his biceps escaped the short sleeves of his brown uniform. Arms the size of anacondas, she decided, feeling a curl of inappropriate interest rise like smoke in her belly. 6'3" if he was an inch, the guy was head-to-toe muscle. His chest spread the confines of his uniform shirt so far, he'd had to undo several buttons to allow his arms up like that. The fabric of his pants strained at the upper curve of his quads. She glanced briefly at the not-so-subtle bulge at his groin. Definitely not a eunuch, this one. The smoke grew thicker. All too easily, she could picture herself straddling his hips and rubbing her breasts against that massive chest. Skin to skin, sweat blending together, breath coming in frantic pants. The image